So effectively, like today, we're going to do a few things. I'm just going to first, I like every now and then just taking a step back and reintroducing what we do. Um, and giving you key updates in our thinking about what we do, because we think that's actually quite important. The second is, off the back of that, I'm going to show you a live demo of some of the updates and the things that we're working on that you'll all have access to soon. And then we just want to open it up, to be honest, for discussion for 30. Hopefully I don't talk too much. I'm already not doing a good job at that. And just hear your feedback for around 30 minutes. And we have a bit of an open conversation, and then we take it from there. Just to start with, so obviously many of you will know we do our yearly community events. And I think for me last year, I think I noticed Ewan is on, but I'm not 100% sure if Tibu is on. In one of the sessions last year, we had this slide, and I actually think it's one of the most important slides that's come up to date in any of the sessions, to Morta or not to Morta, which I thought was quite funny. But I thought it hit on a fundamental point, which is Morta is quite a flexible system. We positioned ourselves as a no-code platform. Some will know, initially we were looking at things or we took a lot of inspiration from things like Airtable and Notion, for example. And that then meant it was quite open-ended. Like, what do you use Morta for? What do you not use Morta for? And in some ways, that was quite open-ended. And that then meant people didn't really know how to exactly describe what Morta does. Different people describe it differently. Some will come and ask us, can we use Morta on site? And we want to start using it to fill out site level information. And all of these types of questions, which sometimes we'll say yes, sometimes we'll say no. But we feel there are core reasons as to why we'd say yes and no to specific things. And that really informs the product direction and where we're going to go. So I think just a bit of history, I was a project controls engineer when we started the company, before we started the company. I worked in project controls and really, I think all of you know what that means, but fundamentally, I was looking at how do we control progress, how do we control cost, how do we control for quality, and how do we use systems to do that. And the key observation in all of this was fragmented information makes controls reactive, it makes it manual, and it makes it disconnected. We have many spreadsheets and many Word documents that exist in the mix in order for us to achieve these things and in order to control our projects against a number of things. Now, obviously, you all know this. What then happened was we started talking about this with people from the early days of the journey. And I would say not everyone really understood this idea that a lot is actually tracked in Excel and is tracked in these types of systems. And many were, especially if we spoke to senior, very senior people or people who weren't in digital, they'd go, I have Autodesk Construction Cloud or I have Procore, and they're going to solve all of their problems. But obviously that wasn't true. Now, we then started having conversations with people around examples of use cases. And one of the ones that came up, which I would willing to bet every single one of you on this call is using it's information delivery planning. And that became our biggest differentiator in the market. It became what everyone actually knows us for. So fundamentally, what happens is I have a master information delivery plan that then gets turned into a task information delivery plan using views and so on and so forth. And then I track that against a range of source systems. Now, what then many of you started doing is you started building on that. How did you build on that? You started moving into broader information management that's connected to your systems. So you took that, you started linking it with naming conventions and standards. You started linking it to responsibility matrices, requirements, reference data. model data assurance, and information management reports. And you're building on that picture. Around this time last year, I started introducing a variation of this diagram. So I started saying we should be looking at information as mortar. And in many ways, that's what we're that's why the name Morta came about. We look at information as something that can bind projects together and that then help you better control projects. And in many ways, we then said there are these different functional areas for controls. I need to control for requirements and quality. I need to control for cost, carbon, and time. Those are outcomes. I need to control across phases of projects, design, construction, commissioning, and handover, and even operation. I need to control my resources required to deliver set scope, supply chain, workforce, material, and assets. And then I need to control for information, risk, safety, and change, which are in interface or foundational areas. Obviously, pretty much all of you started by focusing on the information area, which we think is the most important because it then feeds into everything else we'll be looking at. What we found, though, with this diagram is it actually missed the biggest picture of what we're trying to achieve. So, like I do, I've come up with another diagram that aims to, and that is now for some reason being annoying. I've come up with another diagram to try and articulate what we actually do. And the biggest picture view of what Morta does, especially when thinking of a tier one contractor or an owner, but ultimately like across the faces of a project. Fundamentally, today, we have different systems of record. So we have things like Autodesk Construction Cloud, we have Aconex, we have Viewpoint. We use these for tracking design and documents for the most part, or managing like that specific process. We then have things like Field View, and on Autodesk itself has the build module and so on and so forth. We have ERPs for procurement. We have CRMs. Some are starting to use things like build dots and so on and so forth. All of these are different types of tools and platforms that get used to capture some work that happened. So they keep a record of this work that has happened. But no one is really looking at how do we bring all of these different records of work that have happened into a single place. And in many ways, what we should be doing is we should be planning and tracking design. We should be planning and tracking procurement. We should be planning and tracking manufacturing. We should be planning and tracking site. And we should be planning and tracking handover. Those are the detailed trackers. If you think of a MIDIP has a big role to play in all of these. Ideally, though, those then link into various things. Progress measurement. So when I say my ASTA program or my P6 program has 50% complete, that's not just someone randomly that shouldn't just be someone coming in and saying, I think this activity is 50% complete. It could directly be feeding from the MIDIP, which for design, for example, which I know many of you have already started exploring. The same goes for commercials. If I'm going to decide how much I should get paid as a design firm, for example, that's off the back of how much I've delivered within my MIDIP. But when I'm assessing payment, it's how much has been delivered in the MIDIP. Again, compliance. Many of you are looking at or exploring things related to Building Safety Act, but then you can take that concept and extend it much further. And again, that links to a lot of this. And the same goes for sustainability. So ideally, we move to a world where controls are connected and that roll up all the way up. So we understand what's my progress of the project, what's my commercials, how am I complying or am I not? And I do that based on evidence and based on granular data and information. And if we do all of this, we have evidenced progress, we have delivery certainty, we have predictable commercials, we have auditable compliant records, and we have risk that surfaced early. And then we have projects that actually perform and we know are in good shape or are in bad shape, and we can then intervene and course correct. I think it's very important to put up this diagram because this really grounds our thinking. We always saw ourselves as a control system. We just, I think, didn't even know we didn't articulate it for a vast number of reasons. And in some ways, we got into the weeds of it's a no-code system or IDPs and so on and so forth. But like ultimately, it's project controls. The really, really nice thing is if you were at our last community day, for example, there are probably
engineering as a whole, so to some degree, really focusing on.
There are probably examples of every single one of these use cases that have cropped up. So you've actually been pulling us in this direction quite naturally. And all we're now doing is we're saying, let's actually bring a lot of this together. And like, I don't know why Canva is doing this to me today. Let's all just bring this together and start like putting a big picture view for what we're trying to do. And then if that's the mission and that's what we're trying to achieve, ultimately it's a connected controls hub for design, construction, and information delivery. Like that's really what we do. That's the core bread and butter and like what makes us really unique. Obviously, we then have the templates to match up with a lot of these things. Configuration is a feature, it's not the end result. Yes, it is a flexible and open system, but ultimately we're doing some variation of controls. We integrate, we collaborate, we support automation, and most importantly, I think, and it was also really, really nice to see this, but many people in the community day last year mentioned that the community is actually one of the reasons why they like the platform. I won't drill into this in detail, but just on a high level, I think many of you know we've had the pricing principles continue to be the same. The pricing plans continue to be the same. I think the most important thing that I just want to let people know is we've had a plan for individuals and projects. We then have the enterprise scale-up plan, which you all know about as well. We got feedback from many of you that if we're a smaller organization, we want something in the middle that gives us all of the things that we need. But we even got it with the biggest of organizations. Sometimes it's just one team rolling out the platform for one use case, and they want to be able to get started without needing to get the buy-in of the organization. And that's why we've introduced a team plan. The team plan is currently not live. It will be live in the next 2 weeks on the platform. Anyone who's currently on 10 paid users will get automatically rolled into it and will get access to all of the features for that, which include things like template management and Morta AI and Enforce SSO and a range of other things. We're investing in all plans at the same time, but you'll see in a second now what we think our focus is in terms of product. I'll be sending summaries of all of this later, so don't worry. And then if anyone wants to get in touch and just have another conversation with me, also just drop me a note. I think the most important thing for today is like, what's the product roadmap and themes? What are we actually looking at? So try to not go really into features as much as thematically look at like, what are the things we're thinking about as a company? And all of this is off the back of your feedback, to be honest, more than anything else. The first is automation and insights. So you want to be able to automate as much as you do with Morta, and you want to derive insight from that. Off the back of that, we added things like charts and views. If you recall, last year at the beginning of the year, we had 3 charts. We now, I think, have 13 types of charts, and they've gotten much richer over time. And we're continuing to invest in charting capabilities. The second is Morta AI. We'll link into this, and I'll be walking you through what that looks like in a second. We're going to be investing more in automation and agents. So some of you already are doing things like Kobe assurance on the platform. We're about to some have explored IFC assurance. A lot of you have been asking us for email notifications. And we previously used to say use Power Automate for these things. You will always have the option to use Power Automate, but we're bringing more and more of these things into the platform in order to give you one place that you can control so that you don't need to have to learn another system, and you don't need to ask for permission to use another system. The second big one, and I think one of the biggest reasons why many have adopted us, is standardization. So you want to have a standard way of doing things. The really interesting thing is turns out you need this balance between standardization and flexibility and personalization. So we're investing in things like template management. We're investing in things like Morta data syncing, which you've seen. We're investing in things like personalized views. Then there is scale and governance, especially like we now have around 10 companies that are on scale up. We're getting a lot more feedback around how do we manage the whole organization? How do we govern our templates? We're getting questions around even things like table size and performance. So some are starting to get to million plus rows and they're going there, it's not really working. So we're investing in like a feature called fast mode. Data residency options across different countries. So UK has always obviously been the main one, but now we're growing in places like Saudi. They want data residency options and enterprise security features. Then we have things like scaling support and adoption. So the people who have been using us for 3 to 4 years, I hope everyone is seeing the platform continues to get more and more user-friendly, and we're taking all of the feedback you give us when it comes to user-friendliness on board. But we're doing a lot of there. We're just literally simplifying the platform. We're building like an academy and a help desk, which I think some of you have started interacting with. We're building a playbook itself for how to implement the platform. And that builds from the diagrams that I was showing you earlier. And obviously these community events is another way of doing that. And then finally, we're expanding use cases for controls. And to do that, we're building more on the template library. One of the biggest areas we're exploring now is how to pull model data into the platform. So you'll be seeing more of that in the coming few months. And then more integrations. You would have seen the endpoints are increasing, the number of integrations is increasing, and that's all off the back of the feedback that you've been giving us. So I just wanted to put these out there as like, these are the key areas that we really are just hearing consistent feedback about from all of you. If I were to summarize them, they all go into one of these buckets. The last and most important, I would say, is while we have these key buckets, you will have seen over time, like sometimes there's something we're not thinking about, you'll say, and we'll go, actually, this team is now really becoming big. And we want that. So there is this green wild card where I don't know what will happen in the next few months, but like you'll say something and we'll go, actually, that's really important. And a good number of you have said it. We want to be able to respond to that. So we're not like restricted to these 5 areas. It's just we think they're the ones that we're thematically we're hearing about most consistently. Now, with that in mind, I just want to give you a quick update on some of the things in the platform. I think many of you don't open our templates, to be honest. Especially our oldest users, you're definitely the ones who do that the least. I would highly encourage people to look at our templates. The breadth is continuously increasing to match up with that vision that I outlined across controls. We cover pretty much most of the use cases at this point that you can that you will think of. We still have a lot of gaps, but the library is continuously growing. When I open this up, you can start seeing like how features like dashboard are coming into play, because I can now see my project and how it's performing. Again, we're never trying to take on Power BI, but we are trying to replace Excel-based charts. I can then expand on any of these and I can see the different trackers that I have, and I can work with that. And then we have all of these different templates that are there. It's important to note, like, templates are being built in various ways, but one of the latest things we started doing is we're getting peer review. We've always taken your feedback on board, in what we should be doing. And many of you have been giving us feedback for the templates. But as well, we also now have peer reviewers that we're getting externally that have either been like authors to standards or experts or people who have retired and have been working for the last 30 or 40 years on certain processes. And we're just going, do you think this actually makes sense or it doesn't? The one of the biggest features that we've also invested in recently off the back of, there's a lot of like details, but I'm not going to go into the details today. Today, I just want to have the higher level big things that we're actually focusing on. But I think one of the biggest that many of you have been asking of us for years is this. Yes, I get that we set this as a structure, but someone prefers to see description before container name. And they actually don't want to be able to see this column. So now we have the option for someone to save a personal view, and they can actually have that as their configuration, and they can always have their personal choice when they're doing something. And you don't need to worry about standardizing for every variation of what someone needs. Equally, someone can create their own chart that you wouldn't have catered for in how you design things. So if I will probably pick something that will just not work for, yeah, I knew I'm gonna do this. I want my label to be my discipline, and then I want this to be my container name. And I now created a chart. I can now save this as a view, and then I can always come back and access this. And you can imagine how this concept is going to extend further, but we now have this balance between personalization and like scalable standardization. I think the last one that I just want to show for today, which is probably the most important, is we are now starting to do things in AI. We did have Ask Morta AI, and I think people would know that most from like the UK BIM framework and the Information Management Initiative and what we were doing there. But one of the questions many of you have been asking us is, can I interact with tables? I want better, like, while I think our support is quite accessible, people still want something that they can just very quickly turn to. But also, like, we've now done many onboardings, and we've seen time and time again the challenges that happen. Like, some of you may know this, but I've personally done pretty much every one of our initial onboardings for the last 2 years. And that's because I think onboarding is something that's very important for us to crack as a company, because I don't think it ever stops. So you're using the platform now for something, you then want to use it for something else, you're going to need to onboard new people in your companies. You're going to need to onboard, if you're a consultant working with us or a tier one working with us, you need to, or even an owner, you need to onboard your partners. So we think this idea of seamless onboarding is really key for us to succeeding in this mission. And that's why I've personally wanted to just observe and be part of every onboarding for someone who's trying out the platform, just to see how does that work. It was an easy way for me to learn. So we took it to base principles. Like, the obvious things you would want are, I have things like my information delivery plan, and I may want to go tell me what I have for building surveying. And I will be able to ask that question, and then you have 31 entries for building surveying, and I've applied a filter to show you these entries. Oh, that's nice, that's new. I've now have a filter on building surveying, and I can only see things that are in building surveying. So I can ask questions and I can get that. Now I want to come and say, and I don't think I have any data in here that will show me this, but how am I performing on this project? And then off the back of this, it will give me an answer. Looking at your information delivery plan, 1 item is currently delayed, 83 items are on time. Now I'm going to say, I'm going to show you another example of something for a second. And now I have my information requirements table. Can I make, and I'm just going to preface it by saying we're going to be very deliberate around how we do this, but what we've heard over time is many people don't want to do delivery planning, as much as I really think everyone should like just do it. There is a lot of friction involved. So what we're aiming to do is start helping companies create draft information delivery plans off the back of their internal templates, the history of what they've done on an ACC or Viewpoint or any of the others, and the information requirements that they have been provided by the client. And then I can say, can we make a draft information delivery plan based on these requirements? This may or may not work, but I'm just showing you where we think this is going more than anything else. And in all honesty, I did not fully plan every question that I was going to ask today. Just give it a second. I think I overshot because I'm giving it the whole, like it's having to do the whole table. But let me just give it 1 second and then I'm going to try something else if this doesn't work. I'm just going to leave it for a second and keep it. And this, I'm going to come back to it in a second. Again, this is like, I mean, all of this is like it's a feature that we think is going to be really key. And we want to open it up so that you can help us shape it, basically, which is exactly why you're getting, like, in many ways, early access to it. But I'm just going to take this and say, can I make a delivery plan based on the requirements for the design lead? I'm going to try something else for a second. It's now it added the filter. Yes, to create a delivery plan, I'll filter the information requirements table. Okay, I filtered it. Can we now make a delivery plan based on this? Interesting. It's now making it as a design lead delivery plan. And then it would go through a process basically and work towards making a draft delivery plan. There are various ways. We want to make sure that we restrict this so that these things happen like correctly and people are still doing their job, which is again partly why we want to start like feeding this to you. But you're getting I hope you're starting to get an idea for like where we at least see it going more than anything else. I think that one still isn't working. I'm just gonna try. I want to show you a few other things. It's gonna create table. There are validation errors. So it's telling me there was an error in the formula. Here's what I'll do. I'll create a new table called design lead delivery plan with the same columns as before, but with a corrected formula for estimated package completion. And then let's see, I think I picked the hardest one, which is, I just want to leave it there for a second. And I want to show you a few other, I'm just also, the problem is I didn't plan for time well enough. The big thing when it comes to training is I may want to come and create a new table. So how do I create a new table on Morta? I can ask this question. Off the back of this, I get an answer that's specific to my question. If I then ask, how do I add a new column? I think I should first create the new table. And I'm basically guided, enter the name of the new table and so on and so forth. Now, how do I create a new column? I can now see that. But you can imagine this is going to move to how do I create an information delivery plan? And rather than us telling you step by step what to do to get it to an information delivery plan, it will guide you towards the information delivery plan. So we're doing a mix of there are things that we think will over time automate. And then there will be things, so I think there's something that isn't working in the creation. But I'm just gonna take one last example before I pause. I want to show you, can you colorize everything with building dash one as green? Now, I intentionally did something here. I called it building dash 01. If you see here, it's 01 dash building. And it picked up on there is a value 01 dash building, and I can add that color. And now it's made anything with 01 dash building green. So I'm showing you a spectrum. I think I went for the hardest one, which I think some of you would anyways have a bit of a heart attack about. But the ultimately the way we see this, and just to summarize before as I said, I will fail and talk more than I should. What are we trying to do here? We're really trying to provide an AI that is built on our genuine experience and the challenges you're facing when you're implementing the platform, all the way from training people and onboarding them to you have a question, a formula isn't working, you need to ask a Jad or a Ali, and sometimes you feel like you've asked them too many questions, and even though they'll answer you, you'll feel bad. You can get that, and the AI will have a lot more context. You'll be able to benchmark against best practice. So let's say you've built your own delivery plan. You can then ask it, how does my delivery plan compare to Morta's templates? You can automatically do tasks on your behalf in the way that we saw with the filters and the colors, and the one I overshot with it's just like creating a draft for the IDP. And then you can do reporting and insight. And there are probably many more areas that we're not imagining right now, but I think those are the 6 that we've consistently heard about from all of you. Now, before I open the floor up for questions, already there's been a question around like who's going to have access to this. So every person who's on the call today will get individual access to it to then be able to give us feedback. It's opt-in. We'll provide you the guidelines for what it is. We're not training on your data and like so on and so forth. And it respects all of the data residency rules that we've already been cleared for as a company. We're still on Google and like all of the likes. So all of that, it respects all of the things we've already filled within your security questionnaires. All data is only here in the UK currently. And the only thing that will happen is like anonymized usage patterns will help us improve this further effectively, which is standard for the product, just generally speaking. And I think that's basically it. In terms of who will have access, scale-up customers will have access on an organization level to then give it access to anyone definitely all of their users, and then soon to their partners as well. Team plan people will be getting access. Team plan will be getting access to a bit, probably in a bit longer. And then over time, there will be a much more simplified version for people on professional plan, but we don't know what that will look like. The good news is for every individual who's here, irrespective of what plan you're on, you personally will have access to the feature. It just doesn't mean that all of your counterpart, or everyone else in your organization, will have access to the feature. So I hope that answers that question. And yeah, I think that's it from me for now. What I really want is just feedback, to be honest. So I see Phil has a question, so please go for it. Phil?
Sorry, mate, I must have pressed the wrong button. That doesn't surprise me though, because I usually am wrong with something, so apologies.
Oh, no worries. Awesome. Anyone else have any thoughts? I would really love for this not to be a one-way conversation. That's actually not the point. So the idea isn't for me to just speak at you. If you want your feedback to be heard, I generally recommend starting to use these types of forums for them. Like that's the kind of thing we're moving to. Obviously, we'll hear you out in one-to-one conversations, but this is also the place where you can get everyone else behind you, and then we're much more likely to do something. Yeah, Andrew.
I know we kind of spoke about this already, Mo, but in terms of people who don't have that many licenses and are still working across quite a large number of projects, is there any plan to take my cat's doing on my keyboard? Any plan on taking this scale up or the other plans back into the advanced plan effectively? Any of those features?
So it's basically team plan will have a lot of the critical ones, unless you're a very large organization, which then has much more sophisticated needs.
So if you have less than 10 users, will there be any opportunity to get any of these features in kind of a less than 10 user?
Yes, I would say the base. I mean, if we go through the pricing, like we're kind of getting out of its 10 users. It's a team plan. It gives you up to 10 users. You want to use it for 10, use it. You want to use it for 1, use it. You then want to buy more than 10, you can buy an additional user. But that's the plan. So it's up to a company to decide whether it thinks it's worth paying £1,000 a month for these types of features.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Tom?
Hi. A few months ago, there was the option to have, I think it was in the beta phase, an integration, bring in sort of model data from ACC models.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, I think obviously that's come down. Is that still being worked on or developed? Is that something we'll see back on there as an option in terms of the integrations to that platform?
Yes, so you can see here one of the expanding, like in the goal of like just expanding use cases, generally speaking, model data is one of them. The reason why we removed it is we weren't convinced that the way we implemented it was going to work. So we put it out there to start hinting at it and getting some initial feedback. Based on the feedback we got, we weren't fully convinced that it will work. So we're revising the approach, and then off the back of that, we're gonna be looking at it. There are 3 things we're currently experimenting with. The first is if you're using ACC, ACC has AEC Data Model, which then means we can pull data via API from there. And then eventually, AEC will enable us to also write back data directly to Revit as well via API. So that's one.
Interesting.
The second is, and I think Autodesk is, to be honest, like leaning on what they do best, which is design and making it more accessible via API. And I think they'll unlock some really interesting things there. The second is Revizto is actually launching its API.
I was going to ask about Revizto just next.
So they've just did it, and we are doing a trial. We're starting to trial out basically whether that will work or not. Like I fully suspect it will over time. It's just don't know where we just got. They just emailed us 2 or 3 days ago, and we've basically signed up to be one of the beta testers. So that's the second one, and then the third one is IFC. So irrespective of which CDE you're using, our goal is if you're using IFC, we're going to be able to both pull data out of it, and we're going to be able to write data back. And again, that's an area that we're experimenting in. What we would love as we're doing these, we'll let you all know. We want feedback on these like just generally speaking, as always, like, does it work? Did we write back to an IFC correctly? Are we reading the correct data from IFC? So the more we roll these out, the more feedback we want to get to make sure that we're headed in the right direction. But that's our approach when it comes to model data.
That's great. The link that you guys have into DI routes to be able to feed information back into Revit is really interesting at the moment. So yeah, anything to do with model data, really intrigued by that.
Yeah, obviously that continues to be there. I think there are other plugin providers that may integrate with us this year. I just can't like commit to that because it's not my plugins are outside of ours. Right. But yeah, that continues to be there so long as like DI Roots keeps it. And then but we think there is going with this direction of a lot is moving to the cloud. There is gonna be we can do this automatically in the same way that you do a CDE sync from other you do a CDE sync currently.
That's great. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for asking. Andrew?
Again, it might not be a question for this forum, I guess, but I know there was a bit of a issue with paying for ACC API calls a while ago. Has there been any updates on that in terms of, is that just through the account or is that through yourselves? Like, or should we be expecting to have to start paying for API calls from Morta from ACC?
We honestly have no idea. That what I can tell you actually is anything related to the CDE integration isn't going to be charged for from Autodesk itself. That's what we know. We do know they are currently doing something where they are clearly planning on charging for some API endpoints, which I suspect will be model data. What happens from there, I don't. Will it be us? Will it be you? When Autodesk lets us all know, we'll know.
I'm assuming because we're authorizing through our accounts, it would be charged to our
It should
account,
be.
not to yourselves.
It will probably exactly. Yeah, that was our feedback for the last one. But I think we may have been the only software vendor that paid Autodesk like £6,000, £7,000 for absolutely no reason, because they don't have enough money. But Autodesk can have me on record saying this. But yeah, basically we did have to pay. We're paying like an average of 1,500 a month, but that was because of all of you using us for things. And then that got stopped as a whole mechanism, and they've now rolled out a different mechanism. So we'll be seeing more of this.
I think one additional question there, Mo, if that's all right.
Yeah.
It's again a bit about CDs. I know that you guys work with partners and CDs all the time to try and bring more integrations. Is there a possibility of having kind of future integration pipelines so that we can see, okay, maybe Dialux will end up showing up in 6 months, so we can kind of start planning for that?
We're getting better at communicating, but Dialux there are already ways to get Dialux project-wise, SharePoint. Like there is basically a way to integrate with most systems already, but pretty much all of these systems will be moving towards completely native integration soon.
Great, thank you.
No worries. I'm gonna quickly read through the chat. Meanwhile, if anyone else has any question, also let me know. I think the key ones that we've been asked so far. Can we get a list for formula prompts? Has examples. Count A doesn't exist in Morta. We really to have a list. I think we can. I think there will be various ways of doing this. We will. I mean, one way that it's not exactly what you're saying, but fundamentally, if I come here and I want to just do it on a new table, sorry. When I open up something, it gives me some of the key prompts that I can see for the kind of thing that I'm looking at. So that kind of thing will be done, and then you can take it from there. And we'll be giving you more and more examples of like what kinds of things do you think we can do. But one of the things where we think we're going to be very different in, I'm not fully convinced that, like, we think your behavior on the platform is a predictor of what you will be asking. So the moment you start building a delivery plan, there is a finite number of questions that you can ask. And then off the back of that, we'll be able to go, these are probably the questions you're going to ask. And then you get to the point where you've built it. We know you're going to want to do an analysis column. And the analysis column is going to be actual date minus plan date minus actual date minus plan date, for example. And then you're going to want another column which has delay, whether it's delayed or not. Your behavior is a predictor for what you actually want. And that's like a lot of the philosophy, which we have always had like in audit trails. It's just like the AI is now going to enable us to harness, like to guide you without you asking us, like without you even asking, you will eventually get an answer to your question, because in exactly this moment you've just finished building the MIDP, chances are you need to build a TIDP. You finish the TIDP, chances are you need charts. You've done it and you haven't integrated with a CDE, chances are you should integrate with CDE. You've done all of the above and you haven't integrated it with a project schedule, you should be integrating with a project schedule. So wherever you're at, it will tell you what, like, or that's where it goes. I'm not saying that necessarily happens tomorrow, but it will be able to go, roughly speaking, based on where you are, these are the kinds of things that you should be doing next. And there is then another question. I think you have opened Pandora. Many of us will have many questions and probably don't wish to ask. Yeah, I mean, the whole point is for you to test it out personally. We just want this to, we'll be doing these monthly. So we can like have a more discussion next time after you've tried some of these, and maybe like next time we can have some of you showcase some of the things you would have tested or some of the things you're doing. I think there's another one, very exciting. Will there be, yeah, actually creating equations and formulas. I'm just going to show you this, which I get told is a simple one, but can I update the container name so that it has a concatenation of project originator and functional breakdown codes with a dash in between? I've just updated the formula and it's now changed up. So that's definitely going to be, that's definitely already possible. Andrew, yes, there are examples of OIRs, AIRs, and EIRs in one thing. I can take that separately, but our templates effectively hint into that, and but basically the exchange information requirements is actually a basis for everything, generally speaking, and then I filter it based on high-level purposes, and so on and so forth. So leave this for a second. Would it be possible using the AI? And I can I'll show you that like separately. Would it be possible using the AI to guide the user on how to fill out a form or row? Like I want to create a report for the digital team called name of the report, and it guides them in 3 columns to choose. Yes, that's the kind of thing, even if it can't do it now, that's the kind of thing we want to get to. So based on what you've tagged them as, it should over time be able to guide them towards exactly what they should be doing across the different steps of the journey, Sarah. There are more messages. Yes. Okay, I can see Jad and Ali were beating me. Can you make predefined Power Automate scripts within the resources? For example, SharePoint Power Automate. Yes, we need to get better at surfacing these. We'll make sure that happens. We already have them. It's just we've been sending them when people email us. Having said that, what I am also hinting at is there is a direction of the key things that we would have needed a template are moving in directly into platform. One of the things I noticed is we've had to start supporting you for Microsoft. Not only have we paid Autodesk, but we also support Microsoft products. We're moving these things into the platform. You'll have the basics of what you want within Power Automate, within the platform in Morta. You then want to use Power Automate. Morta continues to be and will always be an open system. There will be guidance on how you can set up a connector and so on and so forth, but it's not our it's not our core area of expertise how to build things on Power Automate. It's there for you as an option, and you have the internal skill sets to do so. Any plans to be able to use the select query in 2 directions? Yes, I think Rob is here. He's another one who's been saying we need bi-directional relationships. It's something we're actively thinking about. We're just seeing how to implement it. I know I have said we were actively thinking about it before, but we're actively thinking about it even more now because of a range of things that are happening. So it is something that you should expect to see. You should expect to have something within the platform soon. But sorry, like in the next few months, basically, it should come about. And when I said usability earlier, I meant we have a lot of things in place already. We're trying to get to the full potential of what we have in place rather than adding fundamentally new features. So for example, we do a one-way lookup now. Can we do something more, like something more bi-directional? Yes, it's something we're thinking about. We see that just a development on lookups as an example, or a development on select lists. But it's those. It's building on that. Does the AI module have the ability to modify charts? Yes, it's moving in that direction, even if it doesn't. Okay, Rob has already written that bi-directional is his #1 request. Will the AI feature be available as of tomorrow? We will be sending you all an email later today or tomorrow with like maximum basically early next week. With having attended the session, you can now go in and try it out. If someone had missed this, they can reach out to us, and then we'll activate it for them. Obviously, all scale-up customers will have the option to do it on their whole organization now. And then if linking to Excel, would it be able to modify data in Excel and write back to Morta? No, you can just download data and you can ingest back. You want to use Power Query within Excel, you can. We are working on making imports to Excel actually better. And that's another example of like usability that I'd give off. I think with that, we've reached the end of the session. I hope people find this useful. Please do give me feedback. Please have a think about how we can make this a conversation between all of us. I really don't want this to be just me speaking. We may make these longer. We may keep them as 1 hour. I'm open to all feedback. We really think you asking questions and having discussions with each other will help us guide the development of the product better. And in many ways, what we're saying is we're accountable to all of the people here. So yeah, hope you found this. Hope you found it useful, and thanks for taking the time to join the first one. And please do send me any feedback that you have, and send on Slack. And I've been loving like the Slack conversations that have been happening, generally speaking, as well. Thank you very much, and hope you all have a really good one.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Mo.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.